The New York Times bombshell exploded across all the cable news networks. Federal investigators were serving search warrants on Rudy Giuliani at his Manhattan home and office in a criminal probe of his dealings with Ukraine. But what the Times has now retracted, along with NBC and the Washington Post, is the allegation that the FBI briefed the former mayor on a Russian intelligence operation. Earlier, the one-time federal prosecutor denounced the search warrants.
I didn't destroy the evidence because the evidence is exculpatory. It proves that the president and I and all of us are innocent. They're the ones who are committing. It's like projection. They're committing the crimes.
As bonkers as it was, it also now makes a tad more sense tonight from Giuliani's perspective, because the desperate lawyer knew that with his prized client out of the White House, he would lose his legal bulletproof vest.
Now Democratic prosecutors want to lock up a 76-year-old icon for a lobbying technicality. Did Rudy Giuliani steal any money? Did he hurt anybody? Did he engage in treason? No.
Joining us now from New York to analyze the coverage, Guy Benson, who hosts the Daily Show and podcast for Fox News Radio, and Liz Claman, host of the Claman Countdown on Fox Business, weekdays at 3 Eastern. Guy, the Washington Post was the first to retract this allegation that the FBI had warned Rudy Giuliani that he was the target of a Russian disinformation campaign against Joe Biden. And this came after he denied it. What's the impact on all three news organizations for correcting such a major accusation?
Well, it's a credibility hit again. And look, if Rudy did something wrong or illegal, let's let this process play out. But this is another example of one of the associates of Donald Trump in the headlines, in the news, about some apparent or alleged malfeasance involving Russia or Ukraine. And you would think, based on huge mistakes that have been made in the past on this front, news organizations would be especially sensitive and careful on these questions and on these matters. And yet, this is a huge, glaring mistake that had to be corrected by these three organizations. And Howie, here's a line that stands out to me from the NBC correction. Quote, "The report was based on a source, not sources, a source familiar with the matter," and then was contradicted by a second source. Often to go to print, you need at least two corroborating sources. It sounds like they went with one person who was supposedly familiar with the matter. I don't know how familiar this person could have been.
Yeah, that's the
given
point.
that they got the wrong information from them. And my question from a media perspective is, at what point do you burn a source and expose who they are? If they give you wrong information and you broadcast or publish that information about a public figure, and then you have to go through this embarrassing retraction process, why protect that source?
Well, Liz, the New York Times at first stealth-edited its story by modifying the language about the accusation, and then after the Washington Post, it ran an actual correction. Rudy Giuliani is calling on all three organizations to reveal their source who provided the obviously wrong information. What's your thought about this?
Well, that's never going to happen. The media definitely, at least the three, the New York Times, Washington Post picked it up, and of course NBC News picked it up. They do have egg on their face about this. I would give them credit for issuing corrections. I wouldn't exactly say it was an outright retraction. It was a correction at the top, at least on the Washington Post page. My morning hard copy of the New York Times did not have the article at all, Howie. So I don't know what that says, but depending, I'm in Jersey. Who knows how early I get that. But the fact is that, the fact that the media pounced on this story is and should not be a surprise to anybody. The legitimacy of it is such that when you have the feds going into a judge and saying, we need a warrant to go in and seize electronics of anybody, let alone a lawyer who is usually protected by attorney-client privilege, you have to prove that there's some type of legitimacy to that. There's some type of logical, probable cause that a crime has taken place. So clearly there is some there. It's not a surprise that the media jumps on it, but yeah, double, triple source on this one for sure.
Now, obviously, Guy, there was a raid, search warrants executed against Giuliani, and that's a pretty big story. He was former President Trump's lawyer. But on the flip side here, some on the right are saying, well, Rudy shouldn't be prosecuted for a technical lobbying violation. Isn't that didn't Joe Biden get criticized for saying that Derek Chauvin was guilty? We don't know exactly what DOJ is investigating Giuliani for. We have a lot of leaks about it.
Correct. And by the way, just to Liz's point, my comment in using the word retraction was about this particular claim that they did retract.
I agree with you.
They put that in a correction. But I would say to your question and to your point, Howie, on this, we don't know is the key and operative phrase. We don't know exactly what the details are. We don't know what the internal intricacies of the case they have against Rudy, how strong it is, how weak it is. Is it a fair thing to go after him? Are they targeting one side versus another? I believe this investigation started during the Bill Barr tenure at DOJ. So that's, one piece of countervailing evidence to maybe point the finger that this is political. I just don't want to engage in too much conjecture about how strong the case is here against Rudy and whether he's culpable and if this is fair or not, because we don't know nearly enough information yet. And I think I would hope that more people in the media would sort of take that approach as opposed to immediately jumping to their foregone conclusion, which has not served them well, especially, as I said, on this issue set in the past.
Yeah, this was at the heart of the first Trump impeachment trial. And, for example, at times it said, well, it had to do with Rudy's role in persuading Donald Trump to remove the ambassador to Ukraine. But again, that's not an established fact. Look, I used to cover Rudy Giuliani when he was the U.S. attorney in Manhattan, Liz. And he knows, because he went after the mob in Wall Street and approved a lot of search warrants, I'm sure, that you can't get a federal judge to approve a search warrant unless you can show there's a likelihood that the person committed a crime. So I don't want to minimize any of this, but when you get a major part of the story wrong, it does cloud the whole situation.
In this case and in all of these big types of stories, the media clam over each other. And we used to joke in local news, first at 6, correct at 11. That's not okay when you're dealing with, people and allegations of serious criminal charges here of whether you took some type of money or exchange of information from a foreign lobbyist or some sort of situation, which is what we at least can kind of conjure up about, the center of this case. I would say, Howie, that this is a very serious situation, and you can't rush to judgment without making sure that you have all of your ducks in a row. And I am sure it's not a great day around the newsrooms of some of these organizations. That said, they do get credit for quickly retracting all of this within 24 hours.
Right, but the question is how many people see the retraction? Is it on the air? Is it as prominent? But Rudy Giuliani is entitled to the presumption of innocence.